You are standing on the north bank of the River Thames in the early 11th century. The air is damp and cold, carrying the smell of mud, smoke, and livestock. Before you rises London, not the vast metropolis of glass towers and endless suburbs that exists today, but a dense, timber-built city pressed tightly within ancient Roman walls. It is around the year 1020. Behind you flows the Thames, wide and brown, crowded with wooden ships and river craft. Long, narrow trading vessels sit beside broader cargo boats loaded with wool, grain, and barrels of ale. There is no stone London bridge lined with houses yet, only a sturdy timber bridge downstream, rebuilt after Viking attacks in the previous century. The river is London's highway. Almost everything that enters or leaves the city passes along this water. If you turned around and looked toward modern London today, you would see steel, concrete, and millions of people stretching far beyond the old city's boundaries. But in 1020, London is compact, perhaps 15,000 to 20,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest towns in England, but small by later standards. The shape of the city, however, is much older. The Roman walls still define London's limits. Built in the late Roman period, these thick stone defenses encircle the city in a rough rectangle. Though repaired and reused, they are centuries old even in 1020. Anglo-Saxon Londoners did not build these walls. They inherited them. And those walls matter because London's survival in the 9th and 10th centuries depended on them. In the late 800s, Viking armies repeatedly attacked English towns. The original Roman city of Londinium had been partly abandoned after Roman rule ended in the 5th century. For a time, settlement shifted slightly west to an area called Lundenwic. But in 886, King Alfred of Wessex recaptured London from Viking control and deliberately reoccupied the old Roman walled city. And he restored its defenses and reorganized it as a fortified burh, a defensive urban center. So the London you see in 1020 is in many ways Alfred's London. Walk through one of the gates, perhaps Bishopsgate or Aldgate, and you enter a tight network of streets. Many follow Roman alignments, though buildings have changed completely. The grand Roman basilicas and bathhouses are gone. In their place stand timber-framed houses with thatched roofs, their upper stories sometimes jutting slightly over the street. The streets are narrow, uneven, and often muddy. There are no paved sidewalks. Drainage is basic at best. Waste from households and animals ends up in the road or in nearby pits. In wet weather, the ground churns into thick mud. In dry spells, dust rises with every cartwheel. The soundscape is constant, hammering from blacksmiths, the rhythmic clack of wooden looms, the lowing of cattle being driven toward market, traders shouting prices in Old English, church bells marking the hours of prayer. London in 1020 is overwhelmingly made of wood. Stone is expensive and rare in domestic construction. Churches and certain defensive structures may use stone, but most homes, workshops, and market stalls are timber-built. Fire is a constant danger. A single spark in dry weather could sweep through entire neighborhoods. London has already experienced destructive fires, and it will again. Yet despite its modest appearance, London is economically vibrant. Its position on the Thames connects it to the North Sea and the wider trading world. Merchants arrive from across England and from continental Europe, especially from the Low Countries and northern France. Archaeological finds show imported pottery, glass, and coins. Silver pennies minted in London circulate widely. By the early 11th century, London is one of the kingdom's primary minting centers. If you walk toward the riverfront, you find busy quays lined with warehouses and wooden jetties. Goods are unloaded by hand. Wool, England's most valuable export, is packed into bundles. Grain from surrounding countryside arrives by cart and boat. Fish, both fresh and salted, is sold in open markets. Unlike modern London, which spreads for miles in every direction, this city is tightly bounded. Just beyond the walls are fields, small settlements, and marshy ground along the Thames. The countryside begins almost immediately outside the gates. At the heart of the city stand several churches. Christianity shapes daily life deeply. St. Paul's Cathedral already exists in an earlier Anglo-Saxon form, smaller and simpler than the later Norman Cathedral, but an important spiritual center. Monasteries and parish churches anchor neighborhoods. The church is not just religious authority, it is a major landowner and political force. In 1020, England is ruled by King Canute, often called Canute, a Danish king who became ruler of England after years of Viking conflict. London has endured sieges and political upheaval during the struggle between Anglo-Saxon kings and Danish invaders. The city has been attacked, out-defended, taxed, and reorganized. For Londoners, kingship matters less in abstract political terms than in practical consequences. A new king may demand new taxes. Coinage may be reformed. Military levies may be required. London's strategic position means it is often at the center of national struggles. Social life in London reflects both hierarchy and opportunity. At the top are royal officials, leading clergy, and wealthy merchants. Below them are skilled craftsmen, smiths, carpenters, leather workers, weavers. There are laborers, porters, servants, and enslaved people. Slavery still exists in England in the early 11th century, though it will decline later in the medieval period. Enslaved individuals may work in households or in agriculture outside the city. Homes vary in size and quality. A prosperous merchant's house may include multiple rooms, storage areas, and a small courtyard. A poorer family might live in a single-room structure with a central hearth. Smoke escapes through a hole in the roof or through loosely fitted thatch. Interiors are dark, lit by firelight or small oil lamps. Food reflects both local production and trade. Bread is a staple. Ale is safer to drink than water in many cases. Meat, pork, beef, mutton is available, though not equally distributed. Fish is common, especially given church fasting rules. Cabbages, onions, beans, and apples appear regularly. Exotic spices are rare but not entirely unknown among the wealthiest. Clothing is practical. Wool dominates. Men wear tunics belted at the waist, with cloaks for warmth. Women wear long gowns with head coverings. Bright dyes exist but are expensive. Most clothing is in muted earth tones. Law and order in London are organized through local systems of responsibility. Tithings, groups of households, share collective responsibility for crimes. Disputes may be settled in local courts. Compensation payments, rather than imprisonment, are common punishments. The city also has an emerging sense of civic identity. London's merchants possess privileges and trading rights granted by kings. Over time, these rights will expand into a powerful tradition of urban self-government. Even in 1020, London is not just another town. it is already developing a distinct political weight within England. But the city remains vulnerable. The Thames is both protection and threat. Viking fleets once sailed upriver with terrifying speed. London Bridge itself was a defensive structure as much as a crossing. Control of the bridge could determine control of the city. Compared to Constantinople, with its massive stone walls and population in the hundreds of thousands, London in 1020 is modest and fragile. Compared to Paris, which is beginning to expand around the Ile de la Cité, London is competitive but not yet dominant in Northern Europe. And yet, something important is happening here. The foundations of later London are being laid. The reuse of Roman walls anchors the city physically. The Mint anchors it economically. The river anchors it commercially. The church anchors it spiritually. And the experience of Viking warfare has anchored it psychologically. London is a defended city, conscious of threat and resilience. Within 50 years, everything will change again. In 1066, William of Normandy will conquer England. The Norman Conquest will bring stone castles, new elites, and massive architectural transformation. The Tower of London will rise near the eastern edge of the city. Romanesque churches will replace many earlier wooden structures. But in 1020, that future is unknown. The London you are standing in is transitional. No longer Roman, not yet Norman. It is Anglo-Saxon in language and law, Danish in kingship, Christian in belief, and deeply shaped by trade. If you could lift this city and place it beside modern London, the contrast would be overwhelming. Today's city contains nearly 10 million people. The medieval city fits inside what is now called the square mile. Today, the Thames is crossed by multiple bridges of steel and stone. In 1020, one wooden bridge carries enormous strategic weight. Yet if you stand on the riverbank in modern London and look toward the curve of the Thames near St. Paul's, you are still looking at the heart of the same city. The streets may have shifted, buildings risen and fallen, empires expanded and collapsed. But the choice to reoccupy those Roman walls in 886, to make London a fortified trading center once again, set the stage for everything that followed. London before 1066 was not a backwater. It was a working, trading, defended city with regional power. It smelled of smoke and mud. It echoed with hammer blows and church bells. It feared invasion and valued stability. It was small, wooden, vulnerable, and already essential. From these timber streets and inherited stone walls would grow one of the most influential cities in global history, and in 1020, all of that future rested quietly inside a Roman rectangle beside a muddy river.